Thank you guys for joining me. My name is Beth Keithley. I am the Fellowships Advisor in the Office of Graduate Education, and today I'm going to talk to you about what to consider for graduate school. So this is not the application process. We'll be talking about that later in the series. This is the thought process and the planning and the timeline and all those good things that you need to do before you start applying, because that's a key element. And one of the first things I'm going to talk to you about is whether you should do this or not. So I'm going to offer hopefully many pieces of quality advice, but let me start with this one. If you have not taken some time and put together if you figured out what kind of jobs you're interested in and what kind of and looked at job listings in those areas and determined what qualifications you need in order to, be eligible for those positions, please start now. Because I've talked to students who just sort of assume they need, oh, I'm sure for this job I must need. And that's not always the case. So the best way to figure out if you need a graduate degree is to start looking at the jobs and deciding what you're interested in applying for, and what those educational requirements are. I will say more often than not these days, a master's degree is certainly preferred, and there's some positions, a professor in academia where you have to have a PhD. There's no question. But if you're not sure, let me start by suggesting you take a few minutes and determine that if you need one. But let's assume you've already done that. I want to give you a quick timeline, because today is September 1st. One of the reasons why we picked September 1st to do this presentation is because the timeline. Most applications are due between October and December, so welcome to grad school application season. Some people call it pumpkin spice latte season. I don't. It's graduate school deadline season. But anywho, here is on the slide is my recommendation for how you tackle the next few months as an applicant. Like I said, career goals, you need to be very firm on your career goals. There are a lot of differences between applying for undergraduate and graduate school. And frankly, there's some similarities between applying for undergraduate and graduate school. One of the huge differences is you really need to know what it is that you want to do. You have to be committed to a career goal, and you can't still be in the exploring portion of your show. You can be wrong. You can change your mind. Things can happen. But one of the things you're going to get asked is, what are your career goals? And you need to have an answer. This is the time, September, when you need to be finalizing a list of prospective schools and professors in your research area. That is the bulk of this presentation, is describing this process. And I would highly recommend you start drafting your statement of purpose. October, that's usually grad school exams, some forms you need to fill out, requesting official transcripts. That's also a really good time to request the letters of recommendation from your writers. That gives you time to draft your statement of purpose, have an idea of career goals, and know which schools you need letters for and how many letters you need. So that can be very handy there. November is getting your application done, and then December is applying. Again, assuming that there is a December 1 deadline, although obviously if you could get it in before then, or if deadlines are different for the school that you're interested in, please follow those rules. This is the sketch of a timeline to work from, not the final answer. So let's start with your career goals. That was the first thing I think you need to do. Let's start going over that. Here are some questions that I think are good to help start that brainstorming process. So the short-term goals, in my opinion, are the degrees that you're interested in. So if you need a master's degree in history so that you can work at an archive, you've got your short-term goal is the degree, and the long-term goal is working in the archive. It could be a PhD so that you could be a professor. It could be that you want MS for whatever your goals are. Whatever your goals are, it is good to have a sentence or two to figure that out. What are the degrees and why? The short-term goals, again, this is the degree. What do you need to do to achieve them? What have you done to achieve them? And why are these your goals? These are questions you're going to need to answer in your personal statement of purpose, whatever the school is calling, whatever the application is calling it. And the sooner you have the answers to those questions and have thought through that process, the happier you will be. And then long-term goals. This is that I want to work, I want to achieve, I want to research piece. Again, what have you done to achieve those? What do you need to do? What have you done? And why are those your goals? These are, this is going to be some quality time with your favorite beverage and probably a piece of paper or an iPad or whatever, however you take notes to figure out what it is that you want. But it is definitely worth it. And then again, let me stress, how much education do you need to achieve those goals? So it goes to, do you need a master's or a PhD? Do you need an MS or an MA? So let me just take a second to kind of walk through those things. I'm going to simplify a lot of things, a lot, but the fundamental difference between a master's and a PhD is the master's degree is shorter. It's usually 2 years, can be even shorter than that, and it can be a bit longer. And in most locations, it can be achieved with or without a thesis. So, for example, at UT Dallas, the thesis component of your master's degree is optional, which can be very appealing, but also speaks to one of the reasons why the degree is so much shorter. The PhD takes longer. You are looking at 4 years, possibly 5, possibly 6, but definitely 4. So twice as long as the master's degree. And there is a lot of significant research, original work that needs to be done. You will have to write a dissertation in order to get your PhD. But a PhD student receives a lot more financial support from the school than a master's student does. So so that's one of those components. You cannot assume as a master's student you will be able to get a TA-ship or an RA-ship the way that PhD students can assume that they will be able to do that as a part of their financial aid package. I often get, what is the difference between a Master's of Art, an MA, or an MS? Again, simplifying grossly, the difference is that the arts, the MA focuses more on the theoretical and the MS focuses more on the technical. There is an assumption that the MS, if you are getting an MS, you are on the path to a PhD. It's not 100% true of the time, but I've got an example here that I hope will clarify this for you. So psychology, there's all kinds of careers and fields and areas of interest in psychology. A MA in psychology, which is something you can get, absolutely, are usually students who are interested in counseling or teaching or social services. They're not interested in the research component. They are interested in the general counseling area. An MS are those who really are looking for research or are interested in teaching or possibly interested in going into medical school and going that route, getting an MD. So hopefully that's clear. I've got this is old, but you can see it's most of the times you see an MS and a PhD together. There are a couple of differences. The Arts, Technology, and Emerging Communications degree, you can get an MA or a PhD. And then what I didn't talk about was an MFA, which is a Master's of Fine Arts. That is often the highest degree you can get in some fields. It's called a terminal degree. It's the highest level you can get. But you can see there are many degree MS to PhD here in material science and engineering, in mathematics, the same MS to PhD. That's often a pathway. And that works both ways. So what I mean when I say that is if you are a master's student, came in for a master's student, definitely want to get a master's in mathematics, but you're not 100% sure, you can obviously change your mind and put the master's classes and that work that you did into a PhD. And if you sign up for a PhD and you get a couple of years in and you realize that it's not for you, you can leave with a master's, assuming you've taken all the requirements for that. So while I highly recommend that you go into the graduate school application process knowing what it is you want, or having a good idea if you want a master's or a PhD, this is not this is the decision that can be changed. This is not in concrete. This is in dirt, and you can change if that is what needs to happen. All right, so hopefully you have at this point in the process figured out what your career goals are and figured out what the degree is that you most likely need in order to be successful in your career goals. This is what you need to start looking for. This is a good list, but it's a long list. So I just want to go over it kind of quickly. It's the reputation of the institution and the program. So depending, there are, schools that have, now I'll use myself as an example. I went to the University of Missouri, which has pretty solid programs, but it is most well known for its journalism program. So the reputation of the program, the journalism program, is actually stronger than the general reputation of the institution. So know both of those things. Kind of, am I going to the top program in the school? Am I going to just understand both of those elements? It's not just the school. You need to know the reputation of the program as well. You also need to know the focus of the program, which goes to the faculty's research interests and accessibility. If you are a physicist and you are interested in astrophysicists, but all the faculty in this high level, well-regarded institution and program are only doing high energy, there's no match there. So definitely take some time looking into faculty research interests and then how accessible they are. And we'll talk about ways to find that information in the next slide. Just kind of keep these in mind right now. The quality of the research facilities. What are the buildings like? Are they relatively new? Do they have the equipment that you need in order to do your research? If you can figure out the career paths of the program graduates, I highly recommend LinkedIn for that. What is it that they are doing? The availability of financial aid. This is extremely important, and please don't prioritize this highly. If you are getting a PhD, it's important to know what financial aid packages are available. You need to find out what a full ride counts as, what the requirements are for that, what the timelines are for that. I've got some questions here in 2 slides, and you can use those as a starting point. But some people don't want to talk about money, and I really recommend that for this process, you are willing to talk about money. Geographic location. Where do you want to live? Even if you're getting a master's and only living there for 2 years, 2 years of misery because you are in a place that you don't like, that's a problem. And you also have other things in your life. You have family, you may have work, you have other obligations that require you to be available, and that would be part of the geographic location. Cost of living and availability of affordable housing. What $40,000 a year will get you, depending on where you live, is dramatically different and is an important part of that equation and figuring out, because if you can't find affordable housing or you can't pay for housing, again, probably not a good place for you. What's the social climate? What's important to you? And do you and the university match, both within the department and the university? Again, talk about ways to find that out. Flexibility. Do you need to be a student part-time? Is that something they'll let you do? And then networking options. Do you have opportunities to mingle not only with students outside your cohort, but are you just going to be in your little group and that's it? Are you going to be sort of on your own and that's it? What is the opportunities to meet people and, you know, get those opportunities? And then the size of the program in your cohort. If you want to be with a big cohort, lots of people, lots of networking opportunities, fabulous. It's important to know, though, if you want to be in a very small cohort so that it's a very tight-knit group, again, that's your call. And one of the things, now that I've gone through this list, I really want to stress, it's your call. The wrong answer is the answer that is when you let other people decide what's important to you. You need to rank these. Maybe there are things that don't matter to you. Maybe program flexibility doesn't matter to you. You can go full time. You're going to give 100% to you don't need flexibility. It's going to be fine. Great. Cross that off of your list. But maybe it's really important to you and it needs to be high on the list. Maybe that needs to be higher, frankly, than the reputation. Or maybe where it is more important to you than the size of your cohort. How you rank these is completely up to you and should be left completely up to you. You can certainly ask other people for advice, but which is more important, research facilities or the geographic location? I don't know. What's your research? How much new equipment is in your research? How important is being warm or being cold to you? Those are questions only you can answer. So definitely make sure, yes, get advice from other people, but please make sure you are the one who is focusing on your priorities and what you need to have happen in this area. Okay, great, Beth. You gave me a whole list of things I'm supposed to look for, and I'm not entirely sure where to find those things. The internet is actually the example, and one of the things I really recommend, especially for figuring out what's important to the school, is to look at the news and if social media of the schools that you might be interested in, because you will see very quickly what a school promotes is what's important to them, and a little bit of what they think you think is important. But you definitely could look at UTD and see, that definitely we're a little nerdy and we're proud of it. We're very proud of being highly ranked within supporting the LGBTQ plus community. There are things that we are proud of that we put all over our internet and our news center and the websites and the social media. And if you were an outsider trying to figure out what UTD was about and seeing if you were a match, you would see those things relatively quickly. And you would either say, yay, that's really important to me, great. Or you would say, that's cool, that's great. I don't know that I really need a school with its own Comic-Con. And that's great. Again, totally valid, but figure those things out. Do make sure that you're looking at the website of the department, the graduate program, especially, at UTD, where what is known as decentralized, which basically means the schools will admit the graduate students. It's not up to our office, it's up to the schools, and we support the schools. But if you look at our website, you will see that information, but you'll also see what support, what events and things that we offer to to all students and all graduate students, and that will be of interest to you or not. There will either be enough or there won't be. But that's an important thing to do, to look at the department, basically to see the information about research, equipment, who the students are, all that good stuff. The graduate program, whether it be kind of UTD, where we're not responsible for admitting, or some locations, the schools, it's a graduate school and they are responsible for the admissions. There's also what services they provide. It's important to look at that, get a feel for if that's enough or not enough, or in areas that you need support or not. And then look at the university on a whole. Like I said at the beginning of this part of the conversation, is to figure out what's important to the university. What does the university look to itself as being the important pieces of who they are and what they are? And then deciding if those mesh with what is important to you. There are other websites. They are very good for helping you find ranking. Ranking is usually external. So, U.S. News and World Report is probably the most well-known. It has a list of graduate schools and is divided into rank. Fortune also has one mostly focused on MBA and business, but not 100%. So definitely take a look at those and others. Depending on your research field, I would look at the professional networking organization that, APS, ACS, APS, whatever your group is, and take a look, see where the board of directors are from, and get an idea of reputation from there. Your current professors are really good, really good for reputation of departments, schools, get an idea of what options, where they went can be good. Also, just sort of generally asking them, oh, hey, I'm interested in a graduate degree in physics, but I don't want to be in the South. I want to be someplace a little, maybe in the Northeast of the US. Any suggestions? That's good, fair question, and really a good way to take advantage of office hours of your professors. Current students and faculty at the schools that you are interested in. I'm going to talk in a minute about asking for informational interviews, and definitely worth an email, a call if you're at a conference and you see them. If there's maybe somebody who's active on social media, you follow on Twitter and they've mentioned that they go to a school that you're interested, great. Academic Twitter, a real thing. Please check that out. Grad Twitter, again, a real thing. Check it out. And then grad school fairs all over the place. Some are online and virtual and open to everyone. Some are school specific. Take advantage of, internet searches and take some time. I am about to show you a list of questions that you don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to have the answers to all of them, but they are good questions to ask, whether you be talking to someone informally or formally as part of a recruitment fair or as part of a campus visit. I want to preface that some of these questions can be answered on the internet. I highly recommend you take the time to do your research before you start asking these questions. Again, one of the things as a graduate student that you are going to do is find the fit. And one of the really good ways to show to the school that you are a good fit is showing that you do some independent research. And one of the ways to do independent research is to get the answers to some of these questions. So, when should I apply? Again, that's something on the website, but you should have the answer to that question. What are the requirements for applying for the graduate program? Again, definitely on the website. Don't just ask. Now, if you've got questions, it's not clear to you, then definitely ask. But the way you ask that is I was looking on the website about the requirements and I wasn't clear on X, Y, or Z. What entrance exams do you require? That usually is on the website, but the GRE is in the process of falling out of favor, and that is changing all the time. So, are a large percentage of students graduating with a terminal master's degree? That's something you usually will not be able to find out on the website. Average time, and I'm not going to go over all of these questions. I am going to stop doing this in just a second. What is the average time to attain an MS or PhD? Sometimes that's on the website, sometimes it's not. Students in the intern class, you're going to have to ask that one. Some of the questions that you do need to ask, and this goes to my earlier comment about money and how it's really important to be willing to have those conversations. Is support offered for a teaching or research assistant? How much is the stipend? Is it for just PhDs Or is it also for master's students? If it is for master's students as well, how often do they get one? Is this support guaranteed for the entire time, or is it a year? Is it year by year? And if it's year by year, what would disqualify the student? What are if there's a teaching requirement, how are those made? And then just sort of, do you have the equipment? Are there provisions for housing, daycare, insurance? Once you've got the stipend, you might want to get into the website and see, cost of living in the city that you're looking at. Again, the cost of living in Boston is very different from the cost of living in Dallas, which is very different from the cost of living in Portland. It's just, you need to know. And then especially for my PhD students, what percentage of students pass the qualifying exams the first time, and how many chances are there? Sort of, what is that process? These questions are important because you need the answers so that you can make some decisions. They also show some real interest in the school. You are not asking about specific computer facilities or qualifying exams of a school that you are not interested in, and the schools know that. The schools know you are extremely interested if you're asking. So as a result, yes, you're asking some detailed questions, but they are going to see that as the interest that it is. So these are all good questions. Know who you're talking to. Probably a current student has at least a theoretical idea of, the percent. Hey, do most students pass the qualifying exam their first time? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, feels like it. In a way that somebody like me, if you asked me what percentage of students in insert department here pass the qualifying exam the first time, I have no idea. But I have a better idea of the selection of the thesis and dissertation committee and average time than a student would. So a current student probably has no idea what the average time is, but that's something I would know. So just know who you're talking to, or if you're just, and it's always fine to ask a question. And if somebody doesn't know the answer, just be like, oh, okay, who might know that? Any ideas who might know that is a fair follow-up. I am a believer in the informational interview, college fair intro, and I'm also a Princess Bride fan. So this is my key for you to do that. Basically, if you are at a career fair and there's a school that you're interested in or not interested in, rather than walk up to the table and say, clearly read the tablecloth and say, oh, tell me about yourself. Especially a school that you're interested in, you want to be a little more like, oh, great, UT Dallas, I was hoping you'd be here. I'm Beth Keithley. I've been looking at your program in, what haven't I picked for a while? Chemistry. Interested in your chemistry. I'm getting an undergraduate in chemistry at the University of Missouri, and I'm really interested in coming here for a graduate degree. I'd really like some more information specifically on your chemistry PhD program. That would be a more, but again, I said hello. I introduced myself. I made a connection between myself and the person I was talking to. So if you were at a conference and you saw somebody from a school you were interested in had a poster and you were like, oh, I see you're from Texas Tech. I'm looking at Texas Tech for a graduate program. Can we talk? I'd really like to talk to you about chemistry at Texas Tech. So that's a relevant personal link. That what you're doing with that is you are explaining why you have chosen to talk to the person you're talking to. And then you manage expectations. That's that. Can I talk to you about the program? So the idea is for the rest of the conversation, we're going to talk about the program. Great. So that's how to introduce yourself in those situations. Here's an email version. I'm not going to read this to you. I'm just going to let it be up for a second so that you can get an idea of how it works. But you can see here, good afternoon. So that's that polite greeting. then the introduction, then the relevant personal link is actually the entire rest of this paragraph. And then the managing expectations is I'd appreciate a chance to learn more about what you do and how you got your start. And then asking about setting up a meeting. I highly recommend if you are asking to set up a meeting or one-on-one chat, whether it be by phone, whether it be by Zoom or in person, that you give the person some time to work with. It feels more polite to say, let me know when you're available and I can make myself available. That's probably not 100% true that you're available all the time. And it also asks the person to just sort of guess as to when you want to meet, how far into the future you're willing to go, and it can slow down the process of getting an answer. So for here in this example, I did 30 minutes during working hours between October 8th to the 16th. That you don't have to write it that way. That may not be what you want. And this is an in-person one where it's, come to your office or a coffee shop, whatever works better. Again, that may not be what you want to do, so you should change this for how you want to do it. But this gives you an idea of tone, and I do use this specifically to point out the whole, please give them a window to work with. If they are not available for 30 minutes during working hours between October 8th and 16th, and they're interested in meeting with you, they will reply and say, you know what, I'm out of town for a conference between the 18th and the 16th, but what about October 20th? So you can use that. So once you have the information, and you will have, however you are organizing it, please organize it, whether it be in a notebook or in files or notes in a, an app on your phone, or whether it be, I don't know, post-it notes on a map of the world. Whatever it is, make sure you are keeping notes and doing a compare and contrast table. That's my favorite way to do to do it on paper, with a compare and contrast with the factors that are the most important to me. So geographic location, financial aid, support, cost of living, all those things, reputation of the program, all those as a column, and then along the side, and then along the top, the names of the schools, and then notes in the middle. Do what works for you. You do not have to use my method, please. But once you have the information, you need to determine which are the factors that are the most important to you. And as you are, and the reason why I do recommend linking the factors kind of second in the process as you're gathering information, is because you will begin to see in your head what is becoming the most important when you kind of go, oh, or oh, maybe you think it's geographic location, and maybe you'll see that you are correct. Or maybe you will think it's geographic location, but as you are researching and the equipment makes itself known to you, or access to databases makes itself known to you, you're like, ooh, yeah, I want to go there. I can buy a heavy coat if I can be part of that. Or I can be in a more suburban area than an urban area if they've got what I need. So determine which factors are important to you, which schools are the best fit, and then apply. That is easier said than done, I will admit. So remember, this takes time and energy. You need to commit some real time to this. You are going to spend some time on the computer. You're going to spend some time emailing people. You are going to have to you are going to definitely have to look into opportunities for you to meet people, to see people, to communicate with people in schools. But universities want graduate students. So while it feels like a lot of work, and it sometimes feels like you're pushing a rock uphill, universities want you. And once you make yourself known to the universities that you are interested in, they will help you find the information that you need about them. And if they're not, that could be a sign too. And you need to know what you want in terms of your career and your degree before you start. So while I said, yeah, you can determine which factors are more important to you as you research, the general what I want to do, you really need to know before you start. Because if you do not know that, um, well, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And so it will be impossible for you to narrow down schools even with some criteria because you're not sure of what it is that you want to do. So with that, I'm going to wish you good luck. I know it's a lot. And it is. But you know, the folks at the Career Center can help. The folks in the Office of Graduate Education can help. The people in your departments can help. Definitely take advantage of the people around you and the systems that are around you that are designed to help you find these things out. And I'm going to thank you for your time. And I'm going to let you know my email address is keithley@utdallas.edu. And have an outstanding rest of your day. Thanks for your time, guys.